Okay, so in this particular session, what I will do, since I'm taking API session for the very first time, so I want to start from the um, scratch. I started using Django recently. Oh, amazing! You should try Django REST framework. I think in API terms, that will be a better choice over Django because it has a few more things. Earlier it was Python. So yeah. Okay, cool. So let me break down this API thing to you. For that, let me share the screen. Let's share screen at Chrome tab and let's say API. So I want this session to be as much practical. So that's why I um, keep limited part to the theory, and second part in today's live only will be the consumption of API. Okay, so I will be focusing on practical part 2 in this live, where we will write some Python code and try to fetch information from the internet. Okay, Rakshita is very new to this. I think please cover more basics if possible. Yeah, I will start from the scratch. So this slide is to introduction to application programming interface, which is nothing but your API. API is a very fancy word, but it's a acronym to application programming interface. Okay, and let me open the chat window. API sounds cool, amazing. They sounds amazing always. Actually, the class, or you can say the slide you are taking, we are consuming API in some sort of amount. We are greatly surrounded by API. Okay, so I'm just opening chats in my phone so that I don't miss any of your messages because I will be shifting on the um, slides fella tab. So now let's dive into the API stuff. So in this slide, I bring up I bring three topics. The first is what is an API, then types of API, then architecture and protocols for API. So first thing first, let's introduce let me introduce you what is this thing API. So in very simple words, is just an interface, as suggested by its full form also, application programming interface. Okay, so this is something interface. So we have, let's suppose we have two softwares, software A and software B, and both are developed using different programming languages. Maybe one is developed in Python and one is developed in Java, and they want to communicate each other. So how a Python program will communicate a Java program? So we need some intermediator in between. And okay, so my Python program wants to communicate with the Java program, and we need some intermediate. So here API will play amazing role. So what will happen? Your let's say Python program wants to communicate with Java. So Python program will raise some request. Okay, I'm using the word request as you have used this thing a lot. Request and response, the client request and server respond. So similarly, Python here is the client and Java will be the server. So Python will raise a request and send to the API. Now API will take that request to the Java program and fetch the data, bring it back to the API, and API will deliver to the Python. So that's how the flow works in API. And in today's world, we are so much surrounded with the APIs. So for example, when you first log into, let's use the example of credit only. You log in via phone number, right? So you put your 10-digit phone number and you get the OTP. So how that OTP reaches your phone? A lot of API works, maybe lot of, or maybe a couple of, or maybe just one API worked for you and bring the OTP to your phone. And when you enter the code, 4-digit code, and then it sent back and validate this OTP matches or not. Once it got matched, you got the login. So basically, API allows abstraction of two systems without either of them being sharing the full information of their database to each other. Exactly, we can define API exactly like that. Yeah, a great support for abstraction part. Yeah, API are used to create some abstractions. Cool, nice. Okay, so next point यहाँ पे यही लिखा हुआ है, allow two applications to interact with each other. Any application can interact with each other, and API are very common and very useful. For example, let's say you are in your college and want to create some project. Okay, and let's say that project is on weather, because today's weather is so much rainy, it destroys all my weekend programs. So yeah, and you want to create some application that will predict the weather, and yeah, give you the suggestions key, should you plan your rides for this weekend or not. Yeah, because that something happened. Cool. So what do you need to create this weather app? You need weather of all the cities, right? And you need geographical information, which will be costly to get if you install your own towers everywhere in every city, in every block. You will set up some satellites to have a check on the cloud pattern and all these things. So that will be a very costly thing if you start that from the scratch. Instead of doing all these hard work, what we can do, we can simply use already built API. Yeah, someone mentioned. Yeah, sorry, Shaurya mentioned that data from weather.com. Yeah, that could be used to get the great coordinates. Yeah, cool. And then only part you have to create for your weather or the prediction app is the machine learning part, where you will collect the data of the cities, you will observe the pattern, and finally make a statement ki this weekend will be good for your riding or not. Okay, so we can actually divide our task and save a lot of money. Okay, you will notice a lot of APIs thing happening. For example, you order something from Zomato or Swiggy, whatever. Okay, so what you get or Dunzo these days. So what do you get? You get the live tracking where your delivery guy reached, right? Swiggy once time advertises thing. You can even track when they're ringing your bill or when they are at your door, right? So how is this possible? Did Zomato, Swiggy, all of them have satellites dedicated in outer space? No, of course not. They are startups and they can't spend that much because sponsoring is a thing, but having a satellite is another level of costing. Yeah, so they can't spend that much. So what they can do instead, they can um, go to the Google. Bruce Wayne level of costing. Yeah, yeah. I was thinking of Tony Stark, but okay, if we are DC people. Okay, so what they can do instead, they can go to Google and say, "Hey Google, you have all those satellites here. Please give me the data, and I just want to do the tracking thing, just tracking thing. I don't want to share the location to your server or nothing. I don't want to share anything. I just want the coordinates of my delivery person. That's it." Okay, so Google will say, okay, yeah, you can use my data which is on my server, but definitely you have to pay me some cost, and that cost will be relatively low as compared to setting up your own satellites into there. Yeah, so that will be great option. So you see, the APIs are really really important in our day-to-day life. So that's why right here decrease user intervention, and it increase it is used to exchange the data. Data is the only thing we care about. Okay, so after understanding all those things about API, so now let's talk about some types of API. So basically, we divide API into four parts. Govind says used to exchange and transmit data from one service to another, right? Yes, yes. So types of API, you have four types of API: the open, partner, internal, composite. Okay, really not that important to know, but yeah, open APIs are free to use. Partner APIs are again open, but restricted for the partners only. For example, we have some business people, so we want only them to access our API. Okay, and further we have something known as API authentication, API keys. So those things we might discuss in next next lives. But in this one, I will keep it simple and straightforward. Internal APIs, which can be used internally in enterprises. Okay, because we don't want to put all the APIs outside. Some API might have a very basic level of accessibility. Some APIs might have a very sensitive information accessibility. So we don't want to give all those API to outside world, right? So that's why we have some internal. And the fourth one, the composite API, is really cool. What it do, composite means more than one, right? So what it do, it combines more than one API, and when you want to integrate that kind of stuff, so you just need to include one API, or you just need to access one API, and that will give you access to a lot of APIs. So that's a composite. Cool. And the power is back. So I might be shifting back to my original Wi-Fi. Cool. So now let's see some architecture. And after, yeah, yeah, it sounds very, very appealing. So once you start learning about APIs, there is no back, no go back. So you will fall in this one. Okay. API architecture and protocols can do. What this thing is, API architecture and protocol. So basically it defines rules for API call. Yeah, there is something known as API calling. So what actually or practically API look like? There are a bunch of functions that you will call using some methods. Okay, depends on what sort of protocol you're using. You are using SOAP, you are using REST, or this new one GraphQL or RPC. So depending on what you are exactly using, there will be some sort of methods. So if I took example from REST, because it's one of the most famous one, and most of the APIs work on the REST protocol. Yeah, after this slide only, I'm going to show you how you can consume APIs. Yeah, and using your favorite programming language, Python. Cool. So, okay, and specifies accepted data types and commands. So basically, what sort of data you are expecting, what sort of request you are making. For example, if I talk about REST one, so REST uses HTTP methods. You might have heard about them: get method, post method, delete method, put method. So these are quite famous one. These four are quite famous one. We have couple of more, but they are more or less the same thing. Okay, or they just don't have that really nice use case. Okay, but these four are pretty much famous. So let me actually show you how you can consume APIs using your Python programming language. So now here is the practical part starts. So let me stop sharing this while I slide. And yeah, I'm back here. So um, let's share the screen. And this time I will show you consume API. Yeah, yeah. So if you believe me, the Python programming language and the consuming APIs, these two things are great match, like the match from the heaven. It's a great match. So Python has a very beautiful library known as requests library, which using which you can actually consume any API that exists in this globe, or most tasks you can perform using this request API. Sorry, request library in Python. So this is consuming APIs with Python. So keep two things in mind. Either we can develop some API and make the server live so that anyone can access that. And second thing we can do by actually calling the API methods and get the data. So in this example, in this slide today, I'm going to show you the second way, where the server is already there in the there somewhere, and we are going to create some application that will uh, access the data. Okay, that's the target for today. That will fetch the data, right? Yeah, makes sense. Cool. That will fetch the data. So topics for this slide is the request library. As I told you, we just need one library request, and then we will access some free APIs because not all APIs are free of cost. If I talk about login with Facebook, login with Google, yeah, we get all those nice things. Where you just need to select your Google account and you will be logged in into the app. So actually, the app maker paying for that service. Are these use cases for API in data analytics? Yeah, anywhere, anywhere. See, the if you remember the example where I talk about weather, right? So the application actually we need to do some predictions. Will this weekend will be good for my ride or not? So there we have to do some data analytics. That data is coming from weather.com. So that's the API call where we call some get method. Okay, we want data of this particular geographical area. That will be a get request from weather.com. Yeah, and then you can use that data in any form you want. Cool. And the second will be yeah, free APIs to try. Yeah, no one will judge. Does it have anything to do with GitHub? GitHub, not exactly, but if you're talking about did GitHub give you some APIs? So yeah, GitHub provides some APIs. Even Google, Facebook, Twitter, all of these giants provide APIs in somehow in some form. No, the GET request. The GET request. Can you clarify more on the GET request because two things are coming in my mind. So either are we talking about the GET request that we write in the very first or the beginning of the project where we actually fetch the repository from the Git, or you're talking about actually API calls from the Git. Does the GET request use into website to get data? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, yes. Cool. So correct. Yeah, that's correct. Cool. And then we will talk about some status codes. Status codes are basically the return codes. In HTTP, we have a lot of return code. One of which is very popular is 404. You might have came across with this 404 um, at some point while surfing or browsing the internet. Yeah, 404 is that much common, right? Which says page not found. That's a response of your request, right? So we have a couple of them, not just 404. We have a lot of them. So I mentioned few more famous ones. So we will see in the third part, and finally I will show you the four popular HTTP methods. Cool. So we need the request library. Let me actually share my entire screen so that I can show you the practical part also. Let me share the entire screen. Great. So we need this request library. So if you open your terminal, I believe we all are comfortable with the terminal. Okay. So yeah, yeah. Great, great. It's absolutely great thing if you are comfortable with terminal. Can I zoom it a bit? Yeah, cool. I think it's more clear now. So to install request library, first let's verify did we have it or not. You can simply write Python 3. Depending on if you're on Windows, you just need to write Python. That will work. If you're on Unix or Linux, you have to write Python 3. Don't confuse with Unix, MacBook I'm talking about. If you're on MacBook or if you're on a Linux system, you have to write Python 3. And simply write one import statement which says import request, plural, okay, requests. Yes, it's plural. So hit enter. And if you see your prompt back, that means you already have a request. If you see not defined, not found sort of error, which means you need to install it. Okay, no worry, I will show you how you can install it. Simply, you just need to write this command, Python -m pip install request. So this is for Windows user. Windows user have to write this command, Python, then space -m pip install requests. If you're on Mac or Linux, you just need to write pip3 install. Okay, if I hit enter, it will say already satisfied. So this requirement is already satisfied for my system. Okay, but if you get error in the first place, this will install, download from the internet and install in your system. After performing this step, you can go back to your Python terminal and try again to import requests. And this time it will work. Cool. I guess we all are on the same page, and now we can go to the next slide. So request library is the only library we need to consume API data from Python. Okay, so I actually mentioned some free APIs that we can actually use and see the status code or response. Okay, so how to do that? Simply say requests, or we can import request as REQ. Otherwise, you have to write requests every time. I prefer REQ instead. Okay, you can say req dot get, and then you need to put some URL. So let's first try to do with google.com. So I will say https forward slash www.google.com. So this is how you make a get call. Okay, so we are saying I'm requesting a get method for this URL. Okay, and this URL is request for me works better. Yeah, definitely. It's just alias. You can use anything or any alias you want. Okay, so if you hit enter and see, we got a response of 200. 200 response mean it's a success. Let me show you. So this presentation have all the status code. This is a status code, this is a reason, and this is the description. So status code is 200, which mean it is okay. Your response is success. Description में मैंने ये लिखा है, request was successful. Okay, and but whenever we go to the browser, let's say if I go to the browser and write the same thing, https colon forward slash www.google.com. I see this page. Yeah, 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 you can follow along. You notice when I request the same URL, I got this page. But when I do the same thing in this terminal, I just got response 200. What this mean actually? So what happened here, whenever you do a get call or whatever call type of method, post, delete, put any sort of call, it will return you some response. So let's have that response variable. I will run the same line, but this time I will assign it to the new variable. I will say response, or let's say for short res. Yeah, yeah. So res is for response, req is request. So let's hit enter, and yeah, this time if you try to print res, you get response 200. But now, as I mentioned, we want the HTML page, like this page. Yeah, this is the HTML page. We want to see that. So you can simply say res.txt, text. Text is a method. If you run it, okay, what it says. Hmm, request dot, sorry, what I'm doing. Res. Yeah, my bad. I was just calling the method instead. Yeah, res, and if you say res.text, and here you will get all the HTML. Okay, let me um, zoom out. So this is here. If you notice the doc type HTML, here is the HTML code starting, and then at the end you will see body tag is closed, HTML tag is closed. Yeah, this is the HTML page that Google returns every time you call google.com, or you go to the browser and write www.google.com. Okay, so there is a server running there. You raise that server by making a request. That request came up with the response. That response was 200, which means success, and this is the actual text. And your browser, what your browser do, it simply render this text into the actual HTML page. Okay, I hope all these things make sense. Yeah, great, great. So that's how your APIs work. So what we did just now, we call an API from Google, and we have a lot of them. A lot of them for free of use. So let's try one more. This is the dog API, which I guess I used a lot in a lot of test apps. So let's come back to the Zoom thing, and and we basically extract useful data from the request as well. Yeah, correct. Cool, amazing. So see, request can be of different types. So this request, you see some HTML data, right? But some request came up with the JSON data, and that is more famous because JSON is actually used to, exchange the information on the internet. It's very famous to use JSON format. Okay, a lot of lot other not a lot, but there are other alternatives also. For example, traditionally we were using XML. So if you have heard about XMLs, so we actually written XML files traditionally, and now it's changed to JSON. Okay, but still we use XML with the SOAP sort of architecture. Okay, SOAP is actually more famous with the enterprise world. Okay, because it's bit closed. Okay, so that's why we use with the enterprise world. Rest is used in the more general and in public. Okay, and this GraphQL is not um, very much older. It's coming from Facebook, but a lot of giants like GitHub start using this GraphQL from um, quite a time. Cool. So let's say response equals to req dot get, and this time I will call https colon / www dot what they have. Okay, instead of www, they have API, and that's a very common convention to have your API names. So they just put API dot whatever the domain name is. So they have the dog API dot com API dot com. Okay, so if I hit enter, yeah, success. Let's see, res is 200, which means successful. And if I say res dot, see, we got this message. Um, and Python people will say, hey, this is the dictionary. And JSON people will say, or JavaScript people will say, hey, it's JSON. Yeah, the dog API will not send you dog, it will send the information about the dogs. And believe me, they have information of dogs across all the breeds. So the third example, which says V1 breeds. So actually, this call will return you a very big JSON with all the breeds and more information about the dogs. So let's try it. Actually, it will be more interesting. I will say the same API, and this thing is known as endpoints. So in API world, the endpoints is a very famous term. Endpoints means verb that we want to perform. Fetch bulldog. Yeah, let's see. Get info about that. Yeah, let's we will do some experiment. So let's say v1 slash breeds. Hit enter, and let's say res, which says 200, which means it's a successful. So res.txt, and see, we got a huge um, JSON response. JSON is quite similar to Python dictionary in terms of appearance. Yeah, so we have a lot of um, things, lot of data here. So see, we got weight, some name, breed for breed group. Yeah, where they actually found origins. This is the origin, German, France. So this dog is found somewhere, and then we have images also. So your response can be a simple JSON. Your response can be HTML. Your response can be some image. Okay. I remember once I created the API. See, let me give you the background scope. So NASA, what NASA do, they have the picture of the day sort of thing. So I once created the API which hit NASA and get their pictures of the day and save that image on my desktop. So I have to find this project. It will be very cool. I will show you someday. But yeah, it was very, very interesting. So it it fetch the picture of the day and save on my desktop. You can also have a earth ka image in different angles with different cameras, black and white, या फिर थोड़ा tilted, थोड़ा grayscale. So NASA की API थी. I can't remember the name, but let's if I try NASA API, maybe the api.nasa.gov, and yeah, exactly this is the place you will get the thing. You just need to click get started, and it will ask you some basic information, and it will give you the access. So you remember I told you about API keys and authentication. So you can't access NASA API without authenticating yourself. So you have to give your some data, which is barely your first name, last name, email, and that's it. And yeah, you will get the API. API ka authentication. Yeah, this is really cool. So you see, we fetch the dog information, but don't worry, cat peoples. We have the API for cat peoples also. So you can simply go and say the cat API instead of dog API. And if you hit enter, so again, you will get a big list for same stuff, but for cats. That is just to reduce spam API calls, I think. Yeah, yeah, probably. Cool. And now, since Python has a great thing, you can simply convert your JSON response into Python dictionary, and then whatever query comes to your mind about weight, description, image, you can perform or you can play on that data. This is your data now, and you can do anything with it. Okay, integrate it in your project, use it somewhere in some form. Okay. So yeah, this is the dog API, this is the cat API, and yeah, I put these four examples. Even you have the COVID API there. So COVID-19 API, where you can get the number of um, so sorry to say that, but you can have the number of deaths happened yesterday, and then all those things. So I think it called API dot COVID-19. Yeah, nah, COVID-19 API.com. So this is the API page. Okay, you can see it's a free API for data on coronavirus. Okay, so you see this big number? It's the request served by this API. This is the number of total requests it served yet. Okay, so we are about the time. Varna, I will show you how you can actually use these APIs. Okay. So they have subscription sort of things also. So you can also buy the subscription if you really like this project, and if you integrate your COVID-19 data into your application, so you can also have the subscription part. This is not sponsored. I'm just suggesting. Okay. But if you just interested, you can go for the free one and to get the basic information. But if you want some um, more detailed information, you have to pay. Volleyball average use. Yeah, correct, correct. A lot of Telegram groups were there कि भाई वैक्सीनेशन सेंटर में vaccinations available हैं कि नहीं है. So they were doing nothing. They were just forwarding the information that they got from the API. Okay, yeah. So I guess that's your API things. Let me give you the status codes also before binding up. You should know more status code. They're not just 404. Okay, I mentioned 404 not found, but we have quite more. Okay, so 200 is for okay. You have already seen that 200. All the requests we made, we got the response 200, which means a success. Quick question: where can we used to receive a call API request almost everywhere, right? Include Telegram, etc. Yeah, anywhere, anywhere. So if you notice, nowadays what happen if you post a status on your WhatsApp, yeah, you get a button, nice button, share it on a Facebook. So how this thing is happening, how um, your WhatsApp photograph is going to or is reaching to the Facebook. It's the APIs. I told you internal APIs about the internal APIs. So that's some internal API. So how your um, Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp status are linked. Cool. Your sign up options like sign up with GitHub, sign up with Microsoft, with Google, or with Facebook. Everywhere we are using APIs. Okay. Four. Let me go do it quickly because we have to um, bind up on time. The status code 400 means bad request. Request is either wrong or missing some information. Okay, and then we have 401, which means unauthorized. So if you remember about the paid APIs thing, let's say somehow you get the query or you get the endpoint, right? And you made a request. So what will you get? What will you get? You will get 401 unauthorized because you are not authorized to have that information. So if anyhow you get the endpoints, still you can't have the data because you don't have the authorization. Yeah, great. Cool. I'm happy you love this. 404 is not found. Requested resource does not exist. 500 means internal server error. Okay, so request was not expected. So you send something which was really not expected, and probably break something on the server side. And this is the worst thing. How does an API call make sure you have the authentication? By using keys. So we have the concept of API keys. So before even starting your communication, we create the session, and or if you're not interested in sessions, what we can do, we can pass our authentication access token, or you can simply say key, in the header of the API. Okay, so whatever you call you made, you have something known as header and a body. Okay, so all these meta information will exist in the header. All right, and the main content will remain in the body, just like the HTML document. Okay, so if the if your token matched, they will authenticate you. Okay, you are the good people. So for example, when you register yourself on this NASA API, they will say, okay, you are a good people, uh, you are a good person, and here is my data. Cool. Okay. So you can actually check the status code. I think I have shown you. If you say if you just say res, it will give you the object, but you can also say res dot what it is status code status underscore code, and you can have res dot reason. Okay. So for example, if you made a request which really does not exist, instead of you put something like that. Okay, you misspelled the endpoint. So it will say 404, which is not found. And again, you can have the exact information like status code here, and you can have the reason also. So these things your browser do for you. Okay, so if browser get 404, it will say 404 page not found. So browser का काम यही होता है to just render the information that it receives. Finally, we have HTTP methods. These are the four most important method. Co- the post method. Post method is used to create new resources, and this is how you call a post method: requests dot post. Get method read an existing resource. So request dot get. Put is to update something. Delete is to delete the existing resource. Okay, and if you notice, these four methods do the fundamental of your database operation. If you know about CURD operations, CURD, create, update, read, and delete, CURD operations. So all those CURD operations are covered in these four type of methods. Okay, create is like post, update is like put, read is like get, and delete is delete. Cool. So you can perform all the CURD operations using these HTTP methods. And these are the examples how you can do post request, get request, put request, and delete request for the dog API. Okay. So I believe we still have more 2-3 minutes, so I can show you this thing. If I go above and call the dog API, dog. So this will give you, this is the get request, right? So it, okay. Actually, it will do a query string also, query part. So slash one means I want data of breed with ID 1. This will delete the info from your system, not the API system. Yeah, that's the testing API. That's why. It's a free testing API. So they really don't want bad people to make a loop and delete all their server data. So they will respond you with the success, but they actually won't delete anything. Okay, so you can see res.text and see previously we were getting bombarded with all the information, but this time I got the information of a dog with ID 1. Yep. And similarly, get you already seen if you do a post, it will do a post request put and delete, similarly the delete one. So these are the HTTP methods, and yeah, thank you, slide. um, I guess that's all from my side for today's live. And yeah, please let me know in the chat you like the session or how was it?